Welcome, everyone, to Enlightened Masculinity podcast. I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, captain of IMC Nation. I live here, and I'm streaming to you from IMC Base 1, 408, Stoic Temple, first Stoic Temple of its kind on the face of the earth. And it's not the first time I've done the first of something that's important on the face of this earth. My PhD was cutting edge in the whole discipline of environmental engineering, cutting edge. It took it to the next level. And that's why I'm going to take it to the next level today with my new understandings of relationships and communication. And then with yoga, I did something that had never been done on earth with traveling, teaching yoga, cold calling to build a business from it. There's always traveling and teaching yoga is a, timeless tradition for monks, yogis. That's what they did. Or what some of them did. And even in modern times, there have been famous travel yogis that, became known, or for one reason or another, let's say they were in the beginning of the American yoga movement. And so they met a lot of people back at different conferences or festivals or things that themselves became high-level people. So they were recruited to travel around the US and the world as people, if you knew people when you were in your 20s and now you're in your 60s or 70s, a lot of people have become more successful. They've established businesses. If you're still in good rapport with them and you're still good at your craft, they invite you to places. So, of course, if you're in the game for 40, 50 years, you're going to be traveling and teaching yoga if you want to be. And then there's another sort of character or person that became famous on Instagram or YouTube or what have you. And again, business was easier when you have 500,000 followers. Now, they did what it took to get there. So congratulations to them. They have a great online business for that. But the communication skills required to cold call and sell yourself as a yogi and do it as a circuit, as an ongoing tour, especially at the level I was at in terms of years and credentials and what have you, never been done before on earth. And if I had kept going from then until now, about three and a half years ago, I would be international and just, doing that whole thing. So now moving on to IMC Nation, that's the second thing that I did that was, never been done on earth before. But now the third thing is IMC Nation. We're taking over the world. Guys have never said, don't live with your women, live with your bros. Not as after college, they do it as athletes. They might do it as military. They might do it as fraternities. And there might be some other circumstances or examples of that. But in a long-term situation, living with your bros, not living with your girls, going that whole route. That's like new. That innovates everything. If you followed that, like Powerhouse and other guys that are on right now, if you followed that and did nothing else, your condition in life would change forever. And it would never be the same. And it would be the sort of thing that men who live with women could never experience as long as they live with women. And that's just one pillar, one piece of information that makes IMC so unique in the world of movements and whatever. There's a lot of other things with that. So what I'll bring to you today, this idea of manifesting relationships, or can you manifest relationships? I'm just going to bring my understanding right here, and maybe you'll like it. Okay. Now, if you've all seen like the plate, and it has a bunch of like pebbles or beads or sand or something on it, and they play a frequency through this metal plate, then depending on the frequency they turn it up, it's like just a hum. They can like tune the frequency. The sand will organize into various perfect geometries, like concentric rings or really complex things. It's really interesting. And the frequency changes what manifests. Now, one of the assigned studies in IMC, which you could do for free, just kick my girl out. She was trying to control my life. There you go. And, there you go, living with a girl. But at least you're a step above a lot of guys that are living at their girl's place. They're living with their girl at their girl's place. So they can't even kick her out. She kicks them out. And they don't even leave and start their own thing. They depend on her like mama. So cosmic disclosure on Gaia, few people will take the time to go through it. And how long it takes you to go through it, I mean, there's membership fee to Gaia. It's not that much, like $15 a month. And if you only had Gaia, then you would probably be a weirdo. If you only looked at cosmic disclosure and you didn't learn game here with IMC Nation, then you would be an alien weirdo for sure. You'd have some cool red pill stuff, and I don't know how far you get because there's still a lot of liberal people that are on Cosmic Disclosure. They get interviewed on there. You can tell they're liberal. They're Democrat. They're confused about a lot of things. And, it's just such a small piece of the puzzle, but it's an important piece. It's like without that piece, things collapse. It's one of those cornerstones, Cosmic Disclosure. So in Cosmic Disclosure, one of the guys was explaining this thing. Mind you, I have a PhD in environmental engineering sciences, so it's not cosmic physics or whatever, molecular organic chemistry or all sorts of things. But I'll tell you from my PhD, watching Cosmic Disclosure, there were things mentioned in there, and more than mentioned, they were described. You have to be a judge of character when you watch Cosmic Disclosure, because they're saying some really, out there things about aliens existing on planet Earth, governments working with them, and it's hundreds of hours of credentialed people with degrees or military backgrounds, Navy SEALs, police, real estate agents, like credible people describing these stories in such detail, jumping around, not just like reading something, but like being questioned and they're just answering. And so you have to judge their character. Like, is this person lying or not? They obviously don't think they're lying. Maybe they're lying, but they don't think they're lying. So if they're lying, it's like, but then person after person, and they're not disagreeing with each other, even though they don't know about each other. Like, they don't know each other. It's one common person interviewing and then a bunch of new people that'll come on throughout 20 seasons or whatever. So it paints this whole picture of like what's really happening on Earth, underground, or with governments, and in the corners of the world that we don't go, Antarctica or deep under the ocean, or so many places, really. And so in Cosmic Disclosure, you get this whole re-education. Now, I already had a PhD. And so in Cosmic Disclosure, they describe various things with geology, things that I do have expertise. I may not be a cosmic physicist, but I do have expertise in geology and various like planetary dynamics, things like weather and climate and the water cycle, like high level. Like, you may know the water cycle, rain evaporates from the oceans and rains on the land, and then rivers flow back to the ocean. Cool. That's like kindergarten for sure. That's great that you know that. But I mean, like, advanced things with the water cycle, I don't even want to talk about, but it's like an expertise of mine. And they say things and describe things that I'm like, wait, that's important. That should have been in my PhD education. 12 and a half years of higher education. Why are underground caverns and, deep underground waterways and, so many things like that, and other ecosystems that are not cataloged in the surface ecosystems, why are they not more well known? And because I'm believing these characters that are saying these things. And so I'm having to question my whole education. I paid 6 figures for my education, and it might be worth diddly squat, because now you may already say it's already worth diddly squat. I mean, it's like, it's more than not worth diddly squat. It's like misinformation. My PhD may be misinformation, or at least partly. Part of misinformation is you only need like 20% misinformation for it all to be misinformation, because it's just like you lose that reference, So in Cosmic Disclosure, they describe this one thing, and like later in one of the like 20 seasons, in the 20th, 21st, 22nd season or so. And so, mind you, that's after all that education of Cosmic Disclosure, of thinking outside the box about alien spacecraft and how materials are made, and the fabrication of them, how spacecraft, how propulsion engines, different alien technologies on they describe a lot of these things. So you're really expanded. You're outside of the boundaries of what you've learned in higher education, whatever. And I'll read your comments in a second. And so they describe this thing in like 21st, 22nd season about essentially manifesting a spacecraft. And they talk about, the quarks that are smaller, they're subatomic, they're smaller than protons and neutrons and electrons. They compose protons and neutrons. And, we're talking so small. Like, if I zoomed in here and then zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in, it would just be like ridiculous to get to atoms, and then inside of atoms. So we're limited by what we can see in there. But so that's where science kind of brushes the edge of mysticism or spirituality or the unexplained. It's where the secret meets quantum physics. And they call it quantum physics, but man, are you really calling that physics? Like, you can't just describe things with words and call it physics. Like equations, relationships that predict future outcomes based on like current circumstances. That's physics. And so is it? Because I did just kind of describe the secret. So they describe that materials, you know, some of these alien spacecraft that they recovered are made of materials that they can't reproduce. They can see what it's made of. It's like zinc or, you know, some alloy of like zinc and manganese or something, like something weird. And they're like, but the way it's made, like the way we can't make those molecules fit like the way they made those molecules fit. We can't do that. We don't know how. We don't have the temperatures needed or the pressures needed, or, you know. And time after time, they say this about different spacecraft. And later in the 21st season or whatever, he says that, you know, because there are quarks and protons and things coming in and out. We know this. You can look it up. They're coming in and out of existence in the fabric of space. In vacuum of space, where there's seemingly no material, there's all these little molecules flying around. But like overall, there's pretty much nothing. That's why it's a vacuum. That there are subatomic particles kind of coming in and out of existence. It's the limit of our understanding. It's probably almost definitely not exactly what's happening. It's just how we're describing it from what we understand. By we, I mean what I have heard from smarter people that study the subject. But that also, admittedly, that if there's underground bases and underground secret science, and they have a bunch of secret technology that's super advanced that they keep from us, they probably have much more accurate, some humans on Earth have more accurate descriptions of reality. And that's a trip, because we're just limited by that. Like, if they saw how to use their mind, which I'm about to get to manifest something, or is their brain so different? Is it, what are they using as another sense that I don't have? Seeing, tasting, touching? Like, maybe it's just different understandings, the language and how they put it together to understand material reality might just be different. So they're describing in 21st season this, they send out a vibration, an alien, an extraterrestrial race. And in that vibration, the quarks that are in vacuum of space, they manifest in certain ways. So it's almost as if pulling them out of this field of possibilities and probabilities, and in solidifying or crystallizing in a way the potential material into the molecules needed. And that's why the spacecraft have such perfect geometry of exactly perfect spheres, exactly perfect cylinders or complex geometric shapes, in ways that it's visible through the cosmic disclosure interviews and testing and what they're saying, that not only was the ship made in zero gravity, that's why there's no deformation from gravity. Gravity would deform the metal as it's cooling or something, as it's being made. It wouldn't be a perfect geometry. So it's not only made in zero gravity, but it's made without being forged. It's not being melted down and then fabricated into some kind of shape like we would do with metal on Earth. Because if you did that, there would be striations and strokes, and you would see the line of the molecules, or there would be some patterning to the molecules by how you do that. There's no way to make it perfectly patternless throughout all the molecular combinations, unless it was like the metal plate with the sand on it, where you push a frequency through it and it makes a perfect geometry in a way that you could never do if you were like, you know, the Indian Zen garden or the Japanese Zen garden, where you make like the circle, you make the square. Like, it's a practice in perfection. It's a practice of no mind. It's a practice, whatever it is. I'm not an expert on it, but it's that spiritual practice. But you're not going to make a perfect geometry. You'll make a pretty picture if you're focused and calm and do it right, but it's not going to be perfect. To get it perfect, you would have the frequencies moving through a plate with sand on it. So the aliens, the ETs, pushing a frequency through the vacuum of space. What kind of frequency? I don't know. But the basic idea makes sense to me. And it makes sense to me in another way when it comes to relationships. And maybe many of you, agree with this, is the frequency. If all things are energy and all things are vibrating, then your body's also vibrating, and all things, everything, anything So my emotions are felt a certain way, and my body vibrates differently if I'm angry or sad, or different colors of emotions. And this vibration is going to come out in many different ways in my body tension, face, voice, sound, tone, eye movement. And it may not be so clear, like the sound frequency going through a plate and organizing the sand, that the frequency going through you, going out of you, is transmitting through the space, the volume around you. And it's subtly shifting. It's moving the sand grains in or out towards the rings, towards the concentric rings, or towards the shape that it's creating. Now, you may be changing your frequency a lot. You're up, you're down, you're left, you're right, you're all over the place, angry, high, low, sad, happy, ecstatic, blah, 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 blah. Or there may be different, everybody has emotions and what have you, but you may be thinking of totally different outcomes sometimes. Like when I was wrestling, sometimes I would see myself losing, sometimes I see myself winning. And I would practice the positive, but doubts and whatever. And so we train our minds and that goes all the way back to childhood. That's not the subject of what I'm talking about right now. But it is related, your deeper thoughts, the congruency of your thoughts, because if you shift your anticipated outcome, and, we know that you kick when you're dreaming, you react when you're dreaming, your imagination, you react to it. Like an actor reacts to their imagination. That's how they act. So you are entertaining certain outcomes, certain anticipated outcomes that are changing your frequency, changing your vibe, changing your attitude. Any of these words, whatever works for you, changing the waves that come out of you. And so the sand grains around you maybe don't have much of an opportunity to organize into the geometric shapes. You keep changing your frequency. If you had the plate of metal and the sand on it, you were changing the frequency, but you never held a frequency. It wasn't like, if you held it there, the sand would organize into perfect geometries. But if you were, and you never stayed somewhere, the sand would just keep moving, but it would never organize. You must be consistent in your frequency. So consistency in your frequency creates a certain experience with humans, with people on this earth, with entities, with living organisms, trees, animals, bugs. You don't have to believe me, but this is the sort of, there's a frequency, we've transcended just the frequency of the sound of my voice. That has a frequency, but I am not a humming device that's just speaking in a constant drone at the same frequency, at the same volume. I'm not doing that like a dial. A lot of times I'm not speaking, I'm listening. There's a quality of communication that's happening. It's different than just the frequency, mechanical frequency of my voice. There's a frequency of being. And so there's an effect that's also subtle, where the cause is the frequency, the effect is the geometric shape of the sand. Yes, my voice creates physical effects on the environment. If I was humming into the steel plate, if I was humming on it and the sand was there, I could make the sand do that. My voice could do that. But there's information in my voice, words, meanings. This information also has a frequency. All things have frequency. The trick with communication is if you don't understand my language, the frequency may not affect you very much. Maybe the sound of my voice, if I'm angry, but you don't understand what I'm saying, it might affect you. But the frequency of my communication, the message embedded in these sound compression waves, there's a message of meanings, of pictures, of feelings in these sound compression waves that you're hearing either through headphones or through, the speaker on your device or whatever, that's recreating my voice on your end through electromagnetic fields. Never mind that part. Let's just say you're in the room with me and you're hearing these arbitrary compression waves of voice that represent meanings, that you interpret the Morse code of my compression waves as meanings that have feelings and images associated with them. And there's a frequency of the message, and the message in my communication moves you as the sand grain in my life, My life is the metal plate. My communication is the frequency. You are the sand grain on my plate. You move in or out, you become my inner circle, my next circle of social. And now there's another layer to this. If I haven't already blown your mind so much, I don't know why you're not. I'm captain of IMC Nation, but we have programs, come around. This stuff is incredible. I'm just whatever was top of mind today, but I'm no greater than you could be. And yet there is skill in this. So I'll say, and you learn it through the lectures and what we teach. So this frequency, the quality of your communication that organizes all the sand grains in your life, not to demean anybody by calling you a sand grain, but it makes the analogy clear, to me anyway, is part of this quality is understanding life. And then as my teacher, AZD, teaches, and how I've learned in my studies with all the books and everything, is there's a difference in men and women, that your communication is not just to people, it's to men and women. And if you communicate to women how you communicate to men, or communicate to men how you communicate to women, you're missing this characteristic of your communication frequency. There's an attraction and a repulsion, a moving in and out of the pebble, depending on who you're talking to. And you got to know that you're not using just, it's like there's a double message. There's a double encoded message in your message. There's double encoding. You're communicating your same communication, your same exact words and tone and everything would be received differently by men and women. Now, every individual will receive it differently, but you'll be able, if you were able to get into the minds of a lot of people, which I have through what I do, and you can believe me or not, but that's what, I mean, I've been doing all right up until now with my lecture. I don't know, maybe I lose you here, but let's see. If you were able to see into the minds of many people, men and women, you would see that the men do cluster around certain interpretations of the same communication, and women cluster around a different sort of interpretation of your communication. That everybody is different, but the women seem more similar in various ways, and the men seem more similar in these ways. So there seems to be these two ways to receive communication at least. And yet there is a commonality between them. Value is value. We're programmed to interpret value, and it feels like value. It feels valuable to us, like as if we knew we were about to win a bunch of money, or had a delicious meal coming to us, or some experience was awaiting us, or is about to happen, like we're right there. We experience value. We're around a valuable person or a dangerous person, but they're on our side, or a rich person, or a famous person, or a beautiful person, or a delicate person, or an intelligent, artistic person. Like we sense value, these high qualities, admirable qualities that we want. And so there's a unison, but there's also this duality in your communication. And there's ways of speaking that cover both bases. And then there's ways of speaking that ostracize the other. For example, if you're in a military movement or some kind of sports team, locker room talk between guys would repel women, most of it. By and large, any locker room talk would repel women if they were listening to it. But there is even a way, at least one way in all the infinity of this universe, there's a way to say whatever you would be saying in locker room talk that would attract women, or not repel them at least. There's a way to say anything that would satisfy both of these embedded communications that are happening, men and women. And that's what we have. We have a code of understanding women and understanding men, and how to communicate to design your life. And frequency has a lot to do with this. So when it comes to relationships, how to manifest a relationship, your frequency and your beingness and where you're coming from is going to organize opportunities in your life. And keep going. I think I'd pretty much just explain the whole title. I don't feel like I need to go really that much any deeper into it. We have a couple comments here. Not many average people can even absorb this information you are articulating. I'd say
You are just like me, but I assume you are a bit older than myself, so I guess I'm just like you. I have ADHD. He's saying I have ADHD. I'm 24, retired Army. Retired Army. I mean, honorably discharged. I don't know if that's retired. How can you be retired at 24? Was with her for 3 years. Oh, this is the guy that kicked her out. Right on. Okay. I do believe that's the end of the show. I see a couple of praises, but no questions or comments. That's Enlightened Masculinity, everybody. This is Avatar training, documenting. We're in the center of Avatar, which is a very advanced training from AZD. It's teaching many things about the mind, flow of conversation, of communication, of relationships, just the flow, the Tao. And so we're in it. And I feel it's very naturally, easily, I'm changing. And I think you can too, if you were a part of it. It's just the way that understandings are put together. You break through the cloud of conditioning and what you are expecting in life. When is next one? Can you message me the next live? I'm enjoying the lecture. Thank you. Yes, be a part of my Telegram group. I posted it in the IMC Telegram group that you could join my Telegram group. And then I'm always announcing it in there, a couple hours before. Maybe I should announce it earlier, like in the morning. Might be better, actually, so people can like mark their calendars. I figure, yeah, okay, I'll try that. Next Wednesday, I'll try earlier. And then sometimes it's improv. I just go live. But Wednesday, the podcast here on IMC TV, we're streaming to. Shout out IMC TV. And it's Enlightened Masculinity podcast. So I've been doing it long before IMC TV. But now I'm just continuing it and also streaming it to IMC TV. And this is on Wednesdays right now, is my scheduled time. So it's the same time every week when you do that. Okay, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And Avatar training, that's imcbase1.com. Super advanced, super good. You have the recordings for life. And it will teach you how to create the relationships from your vibe. Like legit. How to be a ghost when you need to be a ghost. How to be a flame when you need to be a flame. Give them warmth or be transparent. Become more present, become more ethereal. How to be there. Meanwhile, you're leading. You know where the conversation, where the relationship is just a conversation. My girl's been with me for 2.5 years. How long has it been? And it's just a 2 or 2.5 year conversation. Really, we've known each other for like 4 or 6 years or something. It's a 6-year conversation. So how to lead this conversation, meanwhile, not being so self-important, being transparent, but not losing yourself, right? It's not just about pleasing the other person. It's just knowing how to lead. On this prison planet, the way the culture, the structure, the mentality, the collective, mentality is set up, you need to be a wizard of the mind and the heart and the body to properly lead your relationship. Otherwise, it's going to be miserable. And if your relationship is miserable, everything else gets taxed. And everything else becomes some kind of compensation for a suffering relationship. When you have a fulfilling relationship with women, then everything else you do in life, you've already scratched the itch that you're really trying to scratch with all that other stuff. So then you really start doing what you want. You're not doing what you want yet. You're doing what you think is going to get you the options with women that you want. When you get the options that you want with women, then you'll relax and do what you got to do that you're here to do, because that's why you were born to do that. You might already be on that, but there's something in your frequency, in your vibe, that is still seeking the kind of dynamic with women. And so that colors your dharma. It colors your purpose slightly, but that nags at your karma. It nags at your decisions and your actions just a little bit. So mastery, self-mastery, inner mastery in the urban environment is what we do. We are shape-shifting, urban warrior fighting, stoic monks. Streaming to you from IMC Base 1. This is Enlightened Masculinity out. Os.